Hello there, everybody. Welcome along to EFL Debate. This is the League Two podcast. I'm delighted to be joined by Tom Boone from the Railwaymen podcast. Tom, thanks for joining me. A bit of a streaky start to the season from Crewe Alexandra, hasn't it?
Yeah, it started really, really well, as you'll know, because I was on this podcast talking about how good we'd started, and then it sort of seemed like we'd hit that rut again, and it sort of seemed like we were seeing the team we saw at the back end of last season, but we turned it round with at least one win against Notts County on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're now joined by my co-host, Mr. Ed Walker, an expert on all things fourth tier. Ed, I'm just wondering
what 5:30 start.
What have you made of Crewe Alexandra's? Sorry about that. What have you made of Crewe Alexandra's start to the season?
Mixed. Can I summarise with that? I feel like we had an incredibly positive beginning to it, feeling quite good about how things were starting. A little patch away, and maybe now a bit of confidence back in. I'm trying to record this off the top of my head here. Suddenly trying to realise.
Yeah, I mean, Tom, I think what really impressed me was how early on in the season, how aggressive you were against the ball, and how you were able to kind of dominate games. It felt a little bit more like the Notts County game. It was really spirited defending from what I could see, but maybe, in terms of balances, chances, maybe fortune favoured you a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. It was one of them where the first half we scored from our only shot, and actually I thought we started the first 20 quite well, and then we just faded out of the game and were really under the cosh. So Notts County's goal was a bit inevitable. But yeah, we dug deep. We were doing what we've done quite well under Lee Bell, in the sense that we defended really well. We looked quite solid, and we found a way to get 3 points, which is sort of something he specialises in, to be fair.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just wondering, Josh March, a lot of emotion for him after netting the penalty against Notts County, but a really positive start to the season from his point of view.
Yeah, he's had a good start to the season, probably been one of the stars of the side. And actually, that penalty goal was quite big for him, because obviously he'd missed one of the two that we missed against Barnet in that sort of hectic, unscriptable style game. So he really needed to bury it, and I was really happy. He had his moment. He had his moment in front of the home fans where he's scored late on to get us 3 points. So, yeah, delighted for him, and someone who's just been so key to what we're doing this season.
Yeah, absolutely. So good to see Mickey Demetrio get among the goals as well. Possibly back to his 23-24 kind of form.
Well, we can hope. Yeah, I think teams have wised up to him, and actually his goal scoring threat has just been less and less. So it was really nice to see him get a goal, and it was vintage, just free from his man. The ball's in a bit of a danger area, and if there's a man you want at the back post to head it in, it's him, and he did exactly that. But he was fantastic on Saturday, and he needed to be, because he was coming under a little bit of scrutiny after those sort of 5 games where we had been poor. And people were calling on him as a leader of that team to really step up, and fair play to him, he did.
Yeah, certainly did. Also want to bring out Tom Booth, because he made a very good save in the first half. Is he showing signs of claiming that number 1 jersey?
Yeah, we're sticking by him. There was certainly a period where it felt like you could make the argument to drop him for Waller, and we've stuck by him as a club. Lee Bell's stuck by him, and it's bearing its fruits, because he kept us in that game, to be quite frank. He made a few big saves. He made big saves at Colchester away. He was quite solid at Barrow. Granted, we lost, but was one of the reasons it wasn't a heavier scoreline. So, yeah, it really looks like we are backing him this season, because I think in past seasons we would have possibly given the lone keeper a go by this stage if Booth had been putting in the performances he has been. But we're sticking by him, and I think he's improving because of it, which is nice to see for one of our own.
So, where are you feeling on things? Because Obviously, the win against Notts County was great. There were a couple of performances before then, like I think Barrow away was one of them, and maybe another one where you were miles off the levels that you were hoping for, and fans were getting a little bit restless. Has the victory over Notts County soothed things slightly?
Yeah, I mean that's the nature of football, isn't it? I always think that the best thing about these sort of podcasts and fan channels is that they get to be reactionary. Football's a reactionary sport, and as a fan, you've got to take the highs and the lows, and you've got to overreact to everything. I think. Yeah, I was definitely after that Barrow game. If we had done this podcast a week ago, it would have been a very different version of me. I would have been saying I felt a bit apathetic. I felt a bit lost. It feels like we're in a rut again. It feels like we're going to resort back to a back five, negative football. And yet we've won with a late goal and it all feels all right. But that's football personified, in my opinion. Yeah, we definitely, there's definitely some concerns and I hope that we can put them right. But that win is definitely big for confidence and it's definitely big for the fan base in terms of getting them back on side when it could have teetered if we had a lost.
Yeah, I mean, Ed, what do you make of the work Lee Bell has done at? I don't know how the technology is working. Can you hear me all right? Is the audio working okay? I don't know if he can hear me. Probably should have brought him in beforehand rather than starting without. So that's my lesson taking on that one. Yeah, so we'll come back to that with Ed with the technicals. But yeah, I think one thing that certainly from the outside, I'm quite mindful, Tom, that with Crewe Alexandra, you're definitely looking at a bottom 8 budget in League Two. There's hardly any external investment at the club. And so to do what Lee Bell has done, I mean, even last season, there was the disappointment of dropping out of the playoffs in the manner that he did. But even to finish mid-table, although that was a disappointment from where you were, it's probably better than where Crewe Alexandra rank in budgetary terms. And it's difficult for fans to think like that. But I think Lee Bell's done a good job when you look at what he's working with.
I think he's definitely done a good job, and I think the positions definitely at the back end of last season weren't the issue. I think the reason people were debating Lee Bell, it was the style of football and it was the lack of youth players playing under him / attacking players developing under him. It was never, with Crewe Alexandra Football Club, I don't think it'll ever be a results-based thing with fans. It is always, are we playing our kids? Are we playing an attractive brand of football? And actually, at the start of this season, we really were under Bell because we were that intense, we were that forward-thinking side. And that's what fans want to see. And if he can unlock that out of this team, regardless of where we finish, I think fans would be happier this season. But I think he somewhat doesn't benefit from the fact that 2023-24 season was so good, because then the bar's set as, well, Lee Bell can get us in the playoffs. Let's do one better. Let's get promoted at Wembley or let's go up automatically. And when the board maintain and they keep saying to us that we need to be in League One, we want to be in League One, it feels like the goal is League One. So it is, like you say, as a fan, when you're going to watch a football club and, the gaffer, the team, the board are all saying League One's the goal, I think it's counterproductive to then not hold them to that standard, if that makes sense. I agree completely with your point about the budgets, but if we're setting out that the goal is League One and we're using our money to try and get to League One, because that's what we're trying to do at the end of the day, then I think that's got to be the expectation at some point under Bell, whether it's this season, whether it's next season, whenever. His job is to get this club promoted at the end of the day.
Yeah, certainly is. What have you made of, you mentioned youngsters kind of coming into the team, and I suppose the positive sign would be that Holacek, who's already fairly established now, Matches Holacek, because he's been around the squad for about 3 or 4 seasons. But I would say Galamagius starting is a positive in terms of getting those homegrown prospects into the 11.
Yeah, I mean, the goal for me for Agius, Holacek, and if Taberner was fit this season, unfortunately he won't be, the goal with those 3 was to get more goal involvements, because Holacek's a brilliant technical footballer and he's a forward-thinking footballer. He offers creativity. But his final third decision-making, I think, is potentially a little bit subpar. It's something that definitely can be improved, and I think will improve. So I'm not gonna judge him too harshly for that. But yeah, it's nice to see the likes of those two, Owen Lunt, Charlie Finney quietly reached 50 appearances for the club on Saturday. Tom Booth's obviously starting quite consistently now. So it is nice to see our own, because it always is at Crewe. It's always going to be the way. It's always going to be what fans want. We could have great investment into the football club. We'd still want to see our youth. We'd still want to see our academy lads. So it's lovely to see. But next steps for me, for Holacek, for Agius, are goal involvements and more of them. And to be fair, Agius has had a few at the start of this season.
Yeah, so fingers crossed with that, because it would be nice to see players like that come on. I wanted to ask you about Lewis Billington, because on the highlights of the Notts County game, it did look like there were one or two occasions where he seemed a little bit susceptible. I'm wondering whether you feel Lewis Billington is his best position is right back, and how you feel he's been getting on this season.
I think his best position is definitely at right back. I don't even think that's a debate within the club anymore, to be fair. And I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, because he would have been up against Jody Jones on Saturday, which is going to be tough for any League Two fullback. Yeah, Billington's had a very solid start to the season, I'd say. He's been a consistent 6, 7 out of 10 in every game. Even the ones we've been poor in, he's probably still been at that 5 or 6 level. And I think that's what he offers. He's just a bit of a Mr. Consistent. He doesn't really do anything that wows you as a fan, but he does enough where he's never going to come under the firing line, because he's just quite solid at this level. And like I said, he's improving every week going forward. I'd like to see him add a bit more of that sort of marauding fullback aspect, a bit more of an overlap from him. But what he offers us is solidity at the back, and he is someone that I've seen progress completely under Lee Bell, and I've seen him become a better footballer because of Lee Bell. So yeah, I like Lewis Billington a lot.
Yeah, well, hopefully he can bring that solidity against wide players other than Jody Jones, because I can understand that that's obviously going to make it difficult. I suppose the other factor is you've got Tommy O'Reilly on the other side, who's a very forward-thinking player. Do you think that they've got to do a bit of work in terms of building up that relationship on the right-hand side?
I quite like their relationship, to be fair. I think they get along really well as footballers. I've compared it before to you. It's not exactly the same, but that sort of Dan Powell, Perry NG-esque partnership. I think Billow does that. He joins him in attack really well, but you've got such a talented technical footballer in Tommy O'Reilly that you almost let the winger do the talking. You know what I mean? You don't need Lewis Billington to be the attacking one of that partnership. You need him behind, offer an option, and make sure you're there to support him, / if he loses the ball, you're there to win the ball back and get back and defend. But I think it's one of them. I think they've formed quite a nice partnership. And Tommy O'Reilly, he's been a bit all or nothing so far this season. He's either really, really on it, or he's just anonymous in games. But I suppose that's what you get with a lone player from a Premier League side. He looks magic when he's on it, though, and I think he has a real future in football.
Yeah, what I would sort of possibly say is maybe defensively, does Tommy O'Reilly need to give his right back a bit of help from time to time? Does he need to be there? Maybe when he's not on it from that technical attacking point of view, is he still there to offer that support? Because that could dictate a lot for him in his career.
Yeah, very potentially.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So in terms of central midfield, you've got Max Sanders there, who's one of my favourite players, and you've got Connor Thomas, who's it feels like he's the one who arguably one of the most important players in this Crewe team, because you've not got many other players who are like Connor Thomas in the squad, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a huge fan of Connor Thomas since the day he's joined us, and I think the issue with him, and actually wider speaking, that whole midfield, is that it's very injury prone. Jack Powell, granted, Jack Powell's was a very long-term injury, so less so, but we've had periods without Powell and Thomas in that team, and all of a sudden you have less options in midfield, because obviously, naturally, you do when you're talking about the two who are sitting deeper anyway. I love Connor Thomas. I think he's one of the most key players for us. I think when he plays well, the team play well. And I think his tactical awareness and his sort of footballing brain is one of the best I've ever seen for a Crewe player. Yeah, I like our midfield, but it's a very what-if midfield because you rely on the fitness of your key individuals and you rely on Owen Lunt, Max Sanders having good games. When that midfield are off it, the whole team's off it, and we end up not playing through them. So it's one of them. It's a very all or nothing midfield for me, that, but I do like it when it works.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of Charlie, he's playing at left back. Do you think Charlie Finney is of the level that you need in that position? Quality wise.
I think as a backup to Reece Hutchinson, yeah, he's perfectly fine, and I think he can also cover that he can play midfield when needed, and that's the point of our academy for me. On Charlie Finney's wage, we wouldn't be able to get anyone better. That's my view, because he's on low wages, because he's an academy grad, and he can just offer us a squad option. That's the gift of the academy. We would pay similar caliber players probably a few £100 more if we didn't have our academy. And that's the good thing, is that you can have squad options and you can have first teamers through the academy. And I think Charlie Finney right now is just an example of that sort of squad versatility player that we get on the cheap through investing so heavily into our own and backing ourselves in developing players. I've always rated Charlie Finney, to be honest, and he's just never seemed to deliver. Injuries have come at the wrong time for him, but credit to him. I thought he was really solid on Saturday. I thought he took his chance in the absence of Hutchinson through suspension, and if he plays like that, he might have a place in the team, and fingers crossed for him.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of the bench that you've got, one thing I'm curious about is whether Emre Tezgel is going to come into the equation here. Obviously, Josh March has had a brilliant start to the season, and that puts him front and centre quite literally. Tezgel, I do see there as a really exciting prospect and someone who's going to show his uses over the course of the campaign.
Yeah, I mean, he comes with the nickname Lionel Tezzy, and I think that just sums up that he's quite a good footballer. He's one that he came in with such rave reviews, and he's someone I know about through youth level, who I just thought was going to be brilliant for us. And actually, he's not quite gelled yet. He's not quite got the opportunities. He's scored in the cups when he's got to go, but he's not delivered in the league. It's a weird one because I really rate him as a footballer, but I'm not quite sure what he's offered us just yet. We haven't given him enough time in games when it possibly was calling out for him. But then when he started in the league, he's not looked fantastic, and it's forced Josh March out wide. Me personally, I'd like to see Tez and March as a front two at some point, because I think the workhorse aspect of March and then that sort of clinical, almost technical ability of Tezgel could be a nice partnership. But whether we see it or not, we'll see. I do think he'll get minutes, and I do think he'll get a go at some point. And once he starts firing, fingers crossed, it then just means he keeps going and going.
Yeah, I'm excited about Tezgel because I'm a little bit like Tommy O'Reilly. I am a big believer that once someone's had some initial experience of senior football, they're going to get better as a result of that, especially if they come with a really high, good youth reputation. So I'm really hopeful with Tezgel. And Jay Mingy's another one, Tom, because I think Danny Cowley described him as an anaerobic beast when he was at Portsmouth. Obviously worked with him at Colchester as well. Very energetic box-to-box midfielder initially, and then more recently in his career he's been converted into a right-sided defender. But I imagine he's someone that, as a Crewe fan, you've not seen an awful lot of just yet.
No, to be honest, he's only made very, very brief cameos off of the bench in the league, at least, anyway. And he's a player, like you said, he was one that when we signed him, I almost questioned it in the sense that he should be further along than us in his career. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way to us. I just mean that he's a name that I was familiar with, that I really rated at one time. And for whatever reason, it's not quite worked out. And we're the club that are now giving him a chance to push on and prove that he's good at this level and beyond. But like you said, I don't quite know what his best position is. I don't quite know whether we've brought him in as a backup right back, or whether we've brought him in as a hybrid player who can play on that almost right wing, centre mid, right back if needed. I don't know if he's that sort of player. I'm excited to find out because, I like our depth this season. I think that's what we've lacked under Bell in the last 2 seasons. And that's another reason I think fans are quite reluctant to give Bell excuses this season, because I look at our team and I actually think it's really good starting 11, and I think the bench is good as well.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it now, Tom. You've got, if I look at it, you've got James Connolly, who started for you before. You've got Jack Lancaster, who was very good before his injury last season. You've got Jay Mingy, who's played top end League One with Portsmouth. You've got Louis Moult, who before injuries has had a quieter period in his career more recently, but was starting in the Championship of Preston a few years ago. You've got Dion Rankine, who was very highly rated at Chelsea as a sort of versatile wide player, and Tezgel, who we've spoken about. So these are all players who are on the bench against Notts County. So that does give Lee Bell the options to change things up. And the other point that I would make, I agree with you about the lack of depth in previous seasons, but I also think it's been partly because you've had lots of injuries, and it does seem to be, it's been a bit of a curse at Crewe Alexandra the last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, the injury crisis is, whether there's a pattern to them, believe me, the sports scientists are trying to figure it out at our club, why it's been happening. And it might just be down to bad luck. And hopefully we can have a season without bad luck where we can just try and get along our business quietly, try and prove that we are a good side at this level and that Lee Bell knows how to get this football club at the very top end of this division. But yeah, the depth/injury argument, I'm sure if you put 13 or 15 injuries into this season's team like we had last season, I'm sure the depth wouldn't actually be as deep as I'm thinking. But yeah, it's nice to have good backup options because, like you say, you're reading off that bench and there's a good calibre of player there. It isn't just a few kids who've never made appearances.
Yeah, I think you've got to give a lot of credit to the head of recruitment who became
Josh Kennard.
Josh Kennard, thank you. The name was on the tip of my tongue, Tom. Yeah, I think you've got to give a lot of credit to him. And I do think the value of a good director of football, you can't put a price on it because, if it's good recruitment, that can really maximise the budget. And I think we've seen that from Crewe over the last couple of years.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's one of our most valuable assets.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. What have you made of opposition in League Two so far this season, and anyone that's impressed you in terms of opponents?
Swindon were brilliant. I wasn't at the game. I only caught the first half on Sky because I was away that week. But they just looked so clinical. They looked so professional. They looked like an Ian Holloway team at their best. And there were definitely question marks about whether Holloway's still got it in 2025. And I think he does, because I think that Swindon side looked excellent against us. I thought Notts County were quite good at the weekend, to be fair as well to them. If they'd have been a bit more clinical, they would have been out of sight in that first half, to be honest. I'm trying to recall anyone else who I thought has been quite...
Yeah, I thought Crawley was quite poor at Gresty Road.
Yeah, I think the first 4 teams we played were either poor or we made them look poor through how good we were, so they're hard to judge. Swindon are the big standouts for me, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. What do you make of Gillingham? Because I know they beat you 1-0 back in August.
Yeah, Gillingham, again, it was a game I wasn't at, but from the highlight reel, it was a quite even game where if we take our chances, we could have been out of sight. But I do rate Gareth Ainsworth. I think he just knows how to get the best of clubs at this level, and I think his tactics are so... They play in the opposition half. They don't need the ball. They can find a way to win games of football. And I hope Elliot Nevitt's good for them this season, because I think he suits that sort of role of that man who runs the channels, does all the workhorse aspect. And I know Gillingham fans are saying that, he's doing everything so well, but he's not finding the goals. And it sounds like such a familiar story before he got firing for us. So I'm hoping they fall in love with Elliot Nevitt this season like we did.
Yeah, fingers crossed from their point of view. It's interesting. So you've lost. The Barnet game I thought was odd because I felt like Barnet maybe got a little bit lucky in that one. I think it obviously needed 2 penalty saves within 5 minutes from Ciaran Slicker, and I think on another day, either one of those penalties or one of the chances you had in the first half of that game, you'd have probably put away.
Yeah, I found it really hard to judge us after that game because I thought we'd done enough to win the game of football. And truth be told, I thought there were 2 better penalty shouts than the 2 we actually got. So it was one of them where, I mean, granted, if we had been given 4 penalties, I wouldn't have backed us to score any of them on that day. But it was a weird game to judge. I thought they were really professional away from home. It's how you get points on the road at this level. And Dean Brennan is one that is known as a bit of a pragmatic manager. But they didn't overly impress me because I just saw them as another newly promoted dark arts sort of style club. Granted, I don't think they are that. I just think it's how they were trying to get 3 points, and it was what the game needed to frustrate us because we were playing well in the first half. We found our goal, and then we just a bit of sloppy defending, and yeah, it was a really weird game to judge and one that left me very annoyed as a football fan.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of what's possible for Crewe this season then, Tom, what do you think? I mean, at the moment, you're not necessarily in the best of form, but you do have 16 points from your first 10 games, which would obviously put you in and around it if you sustained that return.
Yeah, it's the beauty of League Two, isn't it? Because you can be having a bit of an internal meltdown and you look at the league table and it's like, God, we're actually up there. It's weird, but yeah, I said before the season, I don't know what the ceiling was for us. I could see us anywhere between the automatics and battling for relegation. I said that before the season, and I don't maintain it now because I think we'll be way clear of relegation. But I genuinely don't know what to expect from this season, Gab, and I think that's the beauty. It's already been an emotional roller coaster, and I think are we 9-10 games in? So it's one of them where let's just have what comes to us. Let's enjoy this season. Let's see what happens because it could be anything. It could be that we go 3 without a win now, or it could be that that's a catalyst for a bit of success and we go 4 or 5 on the spin again. So, yeah, bring on Harrogate on Monday and bring on the season for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Just wanted to ask about before I bring in my next guest, I think coming up in about 5 minutes' time. Wanted to ask about the ownership side of things. With Charles Grant is still owner of Crewe. Do you see that staying the case for the foreseeable?
A really hard one to answer because the board have made it clear they want investment, but they've not quite made it clear to fans exactly what sort of investment they want. We don't know whether it'll be a takeover. We don't know whether it'll be money pumped into the club with Grant still involved. We really don't know, and it's sort of gone all quiet on the investment front, to be fair, since they put out the statement asking for investment or saying that they're open to it. Grant said on the Railwaymen podcast that he'd be open to anything, and if the right offer comes, the right offer comes. But it's important to me, and I think I'll speak on behalf of every Crewe fan, we can't sacrifice our principles. We can't move away from the youth academy. We can't move away from what makes Crewe Alexandra, because that would put me off. It'd put other fans off. Yeah. So they've got to very carefully select the investment. And I think ideally it'd be someone local who comes into a lot of money. It'd be someone who gets the football club, someone who already knows a bit about what we are, who we are, what we do. But yeah, I really don't know. And I don't know whether it'll change in the foreseeable. I don't know whether it'll be waiting on it 3 or 4 years down the line. But I do think we're in safe hands under Charles Grant. I think his involvement in the EFL proves that he's someone that's well respected, at least in the sort of footballing community. So yeah, it's a really hard one to answer. But as far as I'm concerned, whilst we're under him, I have full confidence in him and the board to run us healthily, to run us sustainably. And hopefully, like you say, we can get a bit of investment in the club. But I don't know what that would look like, to be completely honest with you, Gab.
Yeah, it's hard to say, isn't it? I think I definitely think that you want the club, you want a sustainable club, don't you? That runs itself, and you might have a bit of external investment because you might need that in the modern football climate. But definitely someone that sort of is going to uphold the values of the club. But for right now, I think Charles Grant is a safe pair of hands, isn't he? All right. Well, Tom, thanks so much for joining us, and look forward to catching up with you at Grassy Road later in the season.
Brilliant. Cheers, Gab.
Cheers. Top man, Tom. So I'm delighted to be joined by my next guest, which is Simon Ward from Walsall Fan TV. Simon, thanks so much for joining us from the Joy and the Pain.
Always a pleasure, Gab. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. Walsall are top of the league again.
I hadn't noticed, to be honest. I hadn't noticed. We tried not to look at the table after last season. We're actually ahead on points compared to last season, which is mad, really.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
So all good, all good. Considering we've changed the majority of the team, the fact that everybody's settled into their roles so well, and the players we've recruited have slotted in so well, it's got to be you got to give full praise to the manager for that. To sort of after last season, to sort of pretty much change the majority of the personnel and to hit the ground running, sticking to the same system that some thought was found out last season. We've started off this season with some more quality in the team. One particular centre half is having a big influence, obviously. And I think we're in a better position now than we were last season.
Certainly are. I'm just wondering, Simon, from for me, I think it's about Walsall having ingredients that they didn't have last year. Aidan Flint, we can talk about, of course, with his experience and know-how in the middle of that back three, but also somebody like Aaron Presley being able to do what Jamil Matt does, but with a lot more in terms of mobility and work against the ball. It does feel like you've and even appointing Chris Powell onto the coaching staff, which you've done this week, another experienced figure on the sidelines. You know, last season you would have said youthful defence, you know, aging front line, and maybe not that much experience on the sidelines. Well, you've corrected all three things so far.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect summary. Chris Powell, that's a real good addition, I think. That's a real good addition, a lot of experience. As you'll know yourself, played over 750 games across the Championship and the Premier League. He's managed or coached over 600 games. And whilst a lot of that has been higher up the pyramid, football's football, and he's there to adapt. And what impressed me most was Walsall interviewed him. He came across very humble. And
it's hardly a surprise. He has a reputation for being that kind of person.
Yeah, it's that kind of calm, relaxed persona, which is just what you want when sometimes if things aren't going too well, you need somebody who's going to sort of just, okay, relax everybody. We know what we're doing. We've got it all together. And that fits well with Matt Sadler, because Matt Sadler's very much some people would say sort of he's oblivious to what's happening. He'll do exactly the same against what he wants to do, regardless of whether we've won 9 on the bounce or lost 9 on the bounce, which is a bit of a scary thought. But to have a philosophy that you're sticking to, everybody knows their roles. And we all said this with League Two. There's 2 things you need in League Two. You need to have a clear way of playing. Everybody needs to know the roles. Everybody needs to know what they're going to do. And then the second thing is you've got to have the strength to be able to fight and earn the right to play. And at the moment, we're doing both of those.
Certainly are. You know what I'm going to do, Si? I'm going to bring in Ben from Fools Rush In podcast on Swindon Town, because I know he's on a tight time limit. So I really appreciate you joining us, Ben. Thank you for your time. Just wondered what you made from a Swindon perspective. I don't know if you were at the Best Scott on the opening day. What you made of Walsall that day, and does their position in the table surprise you?
Well, it's hard to judge, really, at the opening day of the season, how teams are going to do, because it's the first day and everyone's kind of feeling their way into it. So my best gauge of Walsall really is they are a very well organised, very well drilled side. They played better than us on the day. They were a lot better, really, to be fair, and they thoroughly deserved the win, despite going down to 10 men. But yeah, as well, being down to 10 men probably hampered my view of them a little bit. But you kind of know what you're getting also anyway, because you saw a lot of last season. They've added to the team from last year. And I think the experience of last season was either going to aid them or it was going to hinder them. And it seems to have aided them. So they know what the league's about. They know how to get to where they are. We'll see where they are in January. You know, I think that's an important time for them. But I think their best player is not loan players, which I think is one thing they have learned.
Yeah.
They have got good depth there as well. I think players like Aidan Flint has been a superb signing for them at the back. He's a natural leader, and he's tightened he's tightened the screws at the back a little bit. He scores some goals, so they thoroughly deserve who they are.
Yeah, I think I've said on my channel, the Aidan Flint, if he'd have been playing for us last season, the capitulation would not have happened. He's such a giant of a presence. He would not have allowed that to happen. What went wrong with Walsall last season? It was a lot of young players were just exhausted, and when the momentum changed, they realised how worn out they were. Really, Nathan Lowe going back was obviously a contribution to that, amongst other issues. But I think we've got more solidity this year. And it's still very early days. Walsall have the first 10 games, have the majority of those has been against real challengers, such as Swindon. We lost to Gillingham, but that was a tight game. We played Salford, played Grimsby, played Chesterfield, Bristol Rovers on Saturday. So we've played the teams that are likely to be up there. But it's the teams that aren't going to be there that we perhaps generally fall away from.
Can I ask you then, Simon, just to integrate you both? What did you make of Swindon when you played each other on the opening? Because you beat them with 10 men, didn't you?
Yeah, I think that's the way you've phrased that is very unfair, really. I thought Swindon were really good. How we got through that game, that was just blood and guts and pure fight.
Yeah.
I thought Swindon were very good. With the signings that Swindon have made, I predicted them to finish top 8. I expect them to be up there. We got away with it on that day. I thought Swindon were very good. What I want to ask Ben, if I may, is Jake Tabor. What's happened to him?
Yeah.
Because
Swindon have a lot of depth up front. You know, we've got about 6 or 7 strikers that could quite happily fit in the first team. Holloway likes this old stack 'em and rack 'em. We've bought him as an investment. He signed on a 2-year deal. It's a huge jump from Aversham, which I can't remember how low down that is, but it's like step 6 or 7. It's quite far. To jump straight into League 2 football, you know, he came off the bench against Walsall as a sort of like nothing to lose, really. He did okay, to be fair. He's got lots of pace to scare. He's obviously got a natural eye for finish, and the goals don't change size no matter what level you play. But it's just that little bit of experience and knowledge. So he's gone down, I think, to Bath City, which is National League South. He's gone there for a couple of months or so. He can be called back at any point, just to get that higher grade of football under his feet, that sort of knowledge and working against better players, because that's still a decent level at National League South. And, you know, hopefully a full pre-season and a full season at non-league, then at a decent level, then a pre-season, and then we'll see where we are next year with him. But it's always an investment. It was a big shout just to put him in, start him, and, you know, expect him to score 15 to 20 goals also. But it's he's got the natural eye. He's young enough to learn. I think he's only about 20 or so, or 21. So he's he just needs that game under him, and he can't get that minute at Swindon. He's just not going to get the game because he's just got strength.
Yeah, smart addition. I think the challenge for Swindon is keeping the players happy when you've got such a big squad. It's similar to Walsall at the moment. We've got some really good players who are not in the 18, and there's like 3 or 4 of those. But I think from the squad Swindon have got, that's probably 7 or 8 of those, I would think. There aren't even in
they've kind of got to buy into Holloway's philosophy, and he does this stack and rack 'em. So he does what he's always been saying, I know it's been said a lot with Arteta recently, but he's always used the starters and finishers. You know, you are starting a game, but the finishers are just important. And Holloway, he uses horses for courses. Like we just played Bromley, who are a very big physical outfit. So with that, he sort of he drops Glatzel from the side altogether. He drops Wilson Brown, who's a ball playing centre back. He even drops ball right from the team, and he brings in large defenders. Tafazoli made his debut, big strong centre back. We've got that lad from Crewe, Knight Labelle. He played, and he's again quite a big, strong young lad, but he's quite big and strong. And Clarkey at the back, and then we had big combative midfielders in midfield, and we outfought and we won 2-0 and horses of courses. But we'll play another team, and then he'll mix the side around again, and he'll play a different kind of setup, rest players, and that's how we'll do it. So we will do horses for courses. We'll keep our own game, but we will try and match opposition what they do, whilst also imposing our own game onto them, which is a luxury at this level. To be fair, I've not seen this since the days of Paolo Canyon, where we've been in a position where we can rotate, and it means players are fresh. It is a huge squad, though. I think we went into the Football League trophy game, we made 9 changes, and the only academy player was the sub-keeper. So we've got a ridiculous amount of players to keep happy, but the proof's in the pudding when it's cold and the picture's cut up, and and that's I think the squad depth will really make a difference. But at the moment, it seems to be all good.
I think that's the difference between Walsall and Swindon, I suppose, in some respects, because Matt Sadler pretty much keeps to the same team, and the latter part of last season that sort of worked against him because he hadn't got the players weren't fresh. He has been changing things around a little bit, but the last 3 or 4 games, he's been the same 18. Obviously, in the Virtue Trophy, you can sort of change. I think we made 10 changes. But having those together on a regular basis, you do get your understanding and partnerships on the pitch, and you build up that solidity.
Yeah.
And that's a big strength. And what Swindon are doing is you're keeping everybody alive and keeping everybody fresh, but you're not building up the same connections, perhaps. So it's an interesting dynamic, two different styles, isn't it? Styles of management between Holloway and Sadler.
It's different ways of doing things, obviously, if you keep the sort of 16 or the 15-16 and you just rotate them, the same players, obviously they sort of gain a connection and they play week in, week out, and they know what each one's doing. When you've got a larger squad, it's probably a bit harder to do that. You can work things on at training, but obviously it's a bit different to game time. And, you've got players that are not playing as regularly and will want to play more. When you're winning, that's fine. You can understand, that. But, when we do, and we will do, go for a tricky spell of going 3 or 4 games without win, that's probably where you might see a little bit of discourse of players who aren't playing so regularly feel like they should. But yeah, it's just a different way of doing things, isn't it? Really, it works for some teams and not others. But we're so early days. We'll see what happens.
The challenge. I'm sorry, Gabriel. The challenge for Matt Sadler, I think, because we're only 10 games in, obviously the tiredness factor hasn't stepped in yet. Will he learn from last season and maybe not play Connor Barrett for 60 games? And like wing backs, as you know, is a very demanding role. Vinnie Harper on the left wing back. He hadn't got a sniff until Mason Hancock got injured, and now he's playing every game. We are sort of making changes from the bench on our midfield, which is important, and that's a key thing we were doing last season. But I just wonder when we're into sort of in the Christmas period, whether he's going to flog them like he did last season, or maybe use some of the fringe players a little bit more in the league.
Well, I just hold that thought, Simon, because I do want to come back to that, but I know Ben's on a limited time period, so I did want to quickly touch on him with Swindon, and I suppose on that theme with wing backs, Ben, I wanted to ask you about Joe Snowden and Finley Munro, because I really like Snowden in the sense that he can really get to the byline and he's got lots of pace and he looks like a real exciting wing back. And then Finley Munro seems a bit different. He's more about the passing range and the vision that he's got. And between them, again with the Swindon team, I just feel like you've got this multitude of threats where you've got so many different players that can offer something different, and there's so many ways to open teams up.
Yeah, well, we got the 4 wing backs in, and the 2 that you mentioned are the 2 that currently hold the positions at the minute. And I think they're both different in their own way, but both have quite decent, both at the beginning of the EFL journey. I know Finley Monroe's at Villa and he went off on loan to Spain last year. So he's had experience of men's football. He's really caught the eye of the Swindon fans. He's something that we're going to feel quite nervous about coming in January because he's got pretty much the full package defensively and attacking wise. He loves to tackle. He loves a sliding tackle. He's got a good cross on him. He can pick a pass. He can play if you wanted to, the centre back or back 3 or as an attacking wing back, whether Snowden is a kind of an attacking midfielder. He was at Leeds, but then converted to a wide man or to a wing back stroke winger. Defensively, he's still got things to learn because he's not got that natural thought about him, but aggressive. I think he's got some ridiculous. He's got a goal and about 5 assists so far this season. He's unbelievable. He loves got a great cross on him. Someone compared him to like Nicky Summerby like fairly recently, and I don't think he's quite that, but he's got a yeah, I know he's got probably because he's got a hell of a cross on him, and he assists, and he's really really good at that sort of when he loves to jink past a player and cut into the box. He loves all that because he's got that natural attacking aggression to him. But defensively he's got a little bit to learn. Whilst Monroe's a little bit more complete, but Monroe starts every week. It's good.
It doesn't take a genius to guess the generation of whoever made the Summerby comparison.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's my generation. Summerby's as well, but yeah, no, it's. I know that person who did it. They're similar age to me, I'm afraid.
What's possible for Swindon this season, Ben? Just before I let you go.
Well, it's so early, and I don't want to get carried away. So just carry on where we're going. At the moment, the grass is green. It's all smelling of roses and everything, and the squad's deep and everyone's happy. So let's just take it by, month by month, and let's just get as big a gap as we can above 7, 8. And there's a little bit gap building at the minute, but we just keep doing that. And then in January, we'll get past that, see what we've got with the squad then and who goes and who stays. Then after January, let's assess the situation, see if we can give top 3 a real good go. At the moment, we are a contender. At the moment, I would say. But obviously, there's 36 games left. A lot can happen. And I've been in good positions before and seen it all decline. But because of the squad depth, I'm optimistic, shall we say.
Absolutely. Well, we wish you well, Ben, and yeah, certainly very impressive start so far.
No worries. Cheers, Evan. Thanks for having me on. Thank you.
Simon, if you're able to stick around for another 15 minutes, I did want to return to that thing you were talking about with regards to the wing backs for Walsall and I guess the rotation policy with Matt Sadler.
Yeah, I'm hoping the Matt Sadler has learned from that. The 8 is changing the 8s. So a regular change. We've got Lakin and Jellis, and more recently Lakin and Ryan Finnegan. And then we're making the change, getting Courtney Clark on. And that's,
because he was built as a wing back, wasn't he, initially, Courtney Clark? But it's actually found he can play either side and he can play as one of the 8. So
it was strange against Shrewsbury in the Virtue Trophy. He started off at wing back, and I won't say that he'd sort of thrown his dummy out the pram, but he was nothing. There was nothing to him. He was like, he didn't seem to be competing. He didn't seem awake to anything. And then we made a change and put him into the middle, and it was like a switch had been flicked, and suddenly he was alive. So he
It's
obviously
interesting,
enjoys.
yeah, because when I spoke to somebody at Eastbourne Borough when Courtney Clark signed, and they said he can be very exciting going forward because he's got some good raw attributes and he does look quite a physical specimen, doesn't he? But he's got a bit to learn defensively, and that was at National League South level. So maybe there's fewer. Maybe as a number 8, there's fewer defensive responsibilities, whereas a wing back, you're tested one-on-one. In those moments, maybe.
Yeah, in the 8, you're sort of closing down players and trying to nick the ball away.
Yeah.
Which I think it probably suits him better rather than being squared up against a winger who's trying to go past you. That's a different dynamic, isn't it? It's in a much more serious situation than sort of the tittle tattle in the middle of the field sort of thing. There's one player that we've only seen a little bit of, Jid Akiki. We've got on loan. He looked really good when he came on against Shrewsbury. He's not making the 18 at the minute, but I think using him wisely to sort of not overstress Connor Barrett would be a sensible move. But Connor Barrett is a real good outlet for us. So it's a difficult one, isn't it? You don't want to. We don't want to get into a situation where Connor Barrett is exhausted. But some people would say, well, he's a grown man. He's had a full year in the EFL now. He should be able to play every game. But I mean, it is a very demanding role as wing back. If anybody's ever played there, they'll sort of know the physical demands of the role. I think the problem was when we eventually gave Nathan Asimwe a go last season, Connor Barrett was pretty much shot by then, right at the end of the season. And
I think wingback is the position that you want to rotate in where you can.
Well, at the moment, we're rotating the 8s and not rotating the wingbacks. I think Judah Kiki, last 15, 20 minutes for Connor Barrett would be a sensible option. And on the left, Vinnie Harper initially looked a bit lightweight, to be honest.
Yeah, I thought that against Tranmere, actually.
But he's sort of building his part, really. He's looking better with more game time. We do know from his time at Exeter that he had his trouble with injuries. So it is something we've got to be careful of.
Oh God! Imagine if Vincent, because with Mason Hancock injured. Oh God! Imagine if your other left wing back got injured. So that would be.
Well, that is a concern. Judah Kiki can play both sides,
right?
But having a natural left footer on there. There's also Ronan Mayer can play as left wing back, but he is much more suited to higher up the pitch. So there is cover there. But I'm just wondering, in games where perhaps teams are trying to sit back a little bit, maybe having those players on the bench to sort of try and unlock people late in the game.
I mean, one thing I would say is I really like the way Evan Weir supports attacks by drifting wide. So there's maybe less of a onus on the left wing back to provide width because of the technical ability that Evan Weir has. So you could maybe get away with somebody of a different profile on the left, but you'd definitely rather have that natural left footer.
I think if anything happened short term to Vinnie Harper, I think Evan Weir would probably go left wing back, and maybe Rico Brown would slot into the back three.
Right.
But Evan Weir, I think his strength is probably more going forward than defending.
It's more technical rather than athleticism. So as a wing back, I think you've got to be able to get up and down. Whereas what I like about Evan Weir is that, when you give the ball to him, he's got a good passing ability and he was pretty accurate and all that kind of thing. So I like him in that left centre back role for that reason. And it does allow him to get at the end of moves like that striker. The second goal, I think it was against Tranmere. That was a brilliant strike, I thought.
Oh, when he came onto it, yeah, that was
Yeah.
that was absolutely super strike. Evan Weir, yeah, I understand what you're saying there. I think not over stressing him by trying to get him overrunning and just using his ball skill, similar to what we did with Taylor Allen last season.
Yeah.
But that does make sense. But yeah, that would, because we got two players in on the left, with one of them getting injured, with Hancock getting injured so early in the season, it does sort of leave us potentially exposed. I think Judakiki could probably cover that left side. He's a tall, ranging player with lots of ability. So from Stockport, so he perhaps could get in there. But I think what sort of concerns me, I think, last season we'd got Ray's Cleary, was more of a winger in some respects, but could play up front. But he got so little game time when it came to January. When it came to January, where perhaps with Nathan Lowe going, he would have slotted into the front line. By that point, he was like totally fed up of not having any game time, and that is the problem. As I was saying to Ben,
yeah,
keeping people happy. Like, for example, at the moment we've got Rico Brown, Ronan Mayer, Jake Holman, and Jidakiki. None of them are even in the 18.
Yeah.
And I think all of those could comfortably slot into the team, I think. Jake Holman maybe needs a little bit more time to adjust. And the question marks over Ronan Mayer. Some people think he's ready, some people not.
It's going to go on and on, isn't it, Simon?
I want to see him playing and find out. It's strange now.
I've got a question for you though, Simon. Would you change the system in order to accommodate Ronan Mayer? Because if you look at Ronan Mayer and the best role that he could have, I think it's as a specialist number 10 behind the two strikers, where he's given lots of freedom. But I think that the role that the system requires, which is the 3-1-4-2, you're one of 2 8s and you've got to be very athletic, and you've got to get up and down, and you've got to break into the box and get on the end of crosses and things like that. And it's not necessarily super creative. I think most of the creativity actually comes from the wing backs. So I think it's a role that requires different qualities to what maybe Ronan Mayer has, and I think there's a difficulty on both sides from a compatibility angle.
Definitely. I think in that respect, that's why perhaps left wing back might actually be a better role for him. I'm sure he wouldn't like the thought of that from the defensive point of view, but he has played left wing back for Walsall. If we're in a game where teams are just trying to settle for a point or trying to just hold back, and Walsall are struggling to break them down, then Ronan Mayer would be a great player to have off the bench, because of his ability to get his tight control and ability to go past players and often get a shot or a cross away. So, and wins free kicks on the edge of the box and that sort of thing. That would be a massive strength for Walsall to be able to use him in that way. But with the games we've had so far, they have been sort of very physical encounters, and maybe that doesn't suit him quite as much. But saying that, Vinnie Harper and Ronan Mayer, you put them next to each other and then ask me who's the stronger.
Maybe Harper slightly.
Well, I don't know.
You don't know. But talking about that aspect of physicality, Simon, I can't let you go without talking about the partnership between Aaron Presley and Carney. From what I've seen, Aaron Presley has been absolutely brilliant and a massive upgrade on what he had last season. I think he's going to be a huge positive, even if he's not scoring yet. I don't care if Aaron Presley doesn't score any goals all season. I think he's going to create a ton of chances because of that physicality, that work ethic, and knocking things down. And then someone like Daniel Carney, I think, will score an extra 10 goals on top of what the number that he might score naturally because of what Presley does. And Carney, I've been really excited by as well. I thought he was fantastic against Tranmere.
The biggest concern is if that does happen and Carnu gets all the goals, then we could be having a similar situation again where somebody wants to take our favourite striker. So I think
not again, not 4 times, Simon.
Well, I know
please.
Well, it would be crazy, wouldn't it? It would be crazy if it happened again.
Oh my God.
Elvis,
I don't know how your heart would take it.
Elvis needs to get on the score sheet more often to take that onus away. But Daniel Carnu, yes, got plenty of energy, plenty of pace, really good movement.
He's got good feet as well, hasn't he? He can swerve away from opponents. So, yeah, really exciting.
Yeah, and for setting up for the second goal on Saturday, his involvement in that was excellent movement and a turn to sort of get that. And then Elvis finished it off, which that's what we want more often. Yeah. That's good, though. But at the moment, obviously, because of last season, no Walsall fan is getting carried away being at the top of the league. It's very early. We're just going to see how we go and see whether we're still in it after January's done the damage.
Fingers crossed. Well, fingers crossed January doesn't do the damage and you keep Carney for the whole season. Simon, thank you so much for talking to us and look forward to catching up later in the campaign.
Cheers, Manny. Good one. Speak to you soon. Cheers.
Nice one. Delighted to be joined by Danny from the One Up Front Salford City blog and the Old Dead Tree fanzine. Thanks so much for joining us, Danny. Really appreciate your time this evening.
Pleasure.
Interesting. It seems like a really encouraging. I saw the post-match team talk from Carl Robinson. He said dominated, and it was just those fine margins at either end where a bit of sloppy defending at a couple of moments, and obviously Garbutt's penalty was saved. You're on the wrong end of fine margins at the men.
Oh yeah, but I mean, I don't know how much you saw of that game, but that first half probably was the best we've ever played under Carl by a substantial. It was absolutely superb. I mean, I was thinking it's coming together, it's really working, it's away from home. Everything was just going in our favour. Everything we did was just working. But the problem was it 1-0 at half time? I guess it must have been.
I think so.
And then if you don't press home your advantage when you're dominating to that extent, they'd virtually not got a kick. Then you always leave yourself open to those two defensive errors. And I don't know what your thoughts are about Cal's viral clips, but
I'm a little bit surprised actually. Wasn't the kind of manager. I don't know. I'd be curious to know whether that's common for Carl Robinson to be that animated in the dressing room and fiery, or whether there was like a tiny bit of appealing to the cameras kind of thing. But I'm curious about that.
That's what none of us know, do we? But me and quite a lot of my pals who I kind of socialise with, who are supporting Salford, all think it's with a view to let's get the clip viral, let's get our name out there, let's start getting people in the door and saying, the water cooler moment, you know what I mean? The Monday morning quarterbacking type thing. So
the Churchillian, kind of thing. Yeah.
It is, and the funny thing is, he says, I do whatever I do it with class. I do it, and then I think the fourth official won't necessarily agree with that. Really, would he? I don't think so. Anyway, moving on, Gab. Moving on.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, you mentioned that was one of Salford City's best performances this season from a performance standpoint, even if you take away the individual incidents. But what would you say was the key to the positive performance?
I'm going to just give a little bit of context that I think my biggest frustration with him, with buying the players that he's bought, Matt Butcher, George Grant, I call him Jorge, Daniel Udo.
I say Jorge Grant, yeah.
There we go. Michael Rose, Braden Cooper. It's players who I think in general are on the technical side of the tree, I think. Right? A lot of them can play football. They're not in there to just play Tony Pulis, lump it up type filth. And I still think that Carl is struggling to wean himself off that, because when you've got a goalkeeper who's as good with his feet as I think Matt Young is, then use it. Maybe start playing out from the back, take a bit of a risk. But depending on how many of the clips you've seen, Carl is saying, at least at the start of each half, first 10, 15 minutes, do not pass in your own half, get it forward. Fair enough, keep it tight. But that first half was the first time, even though we didn't play out from the back, we actually did play more football than I've seen for a significant period of time. Because I still think I've said it so many times and I've written about it, that I think he's scarred by seeing all the footage and all the video of what happened with Neil Wood's defence, that when Theo Vassell, Curtis Tilt, people like that, when they were playing from the back, it got destroyed. And that's why Wood basically ended up being an untenable situation. And he's never allowed us to do that ever since he's come in. We've always got the ball forward very, very early. But I did see signs. I think it was Grant's best game. I think he was absolutely superb. I think when you give him the ball, he was really good. Am I saying that, or did actually my mistake?
Well, Jorge Grant
Sam Rashley played. Sam Rashley played. What an idiot! Sorry, Grant has played well recently. Grant has played well. My memory's not the greatest. So
this is why I've hired an editor for the channel.
Yeah, but please do. But Sam Rashley. We were brutal in terms of our physicality in that game, but I thought we also played football. So we combined the two things that I think Carl wants us to do: be intense and play.
No, I think that's really encouraging. Really excited by the Callum Cisse signing when it first came through, and Alou were as well. Are you excited by some of these players and how they're sort of stepping up to League Two and the profile that Salford have been going for?
Yeah, I mean it's a bit schizophrenic almost if you look at the way there's like a dividing split of a specific date of when we started signing players. They were all National League before a certain date, and then after another time, about the 8th of August, they were all League One Championship style. Very, very different. So you mentioned Aluo and Cisse, so I might as well talk about those. Seeing Aluo step into Curtis Tilt's boots and thinking, why is this guy not running through the back of people and scything them in half? That I have had to get used to that. Aluo doesn't defend like that. He's a big strapping lad, but he actually likes to play more, at least as a defender rather than a ball player. He actually likes to be as surgically clean and precise as Negru, in my opinion. He's a little bit softer edged in that way. He's not the brute that Tilt was, and he's really coming to his own ever since. I think he played the first half of our cup game. Did Adibola against Rotherham. Since then, he's been on fire. He made a mistake. Butcher kind of put him in the doo-doo as well, I think, with letting the ball bounce and for that second goal, whatever. But I think Aluo is now a rock in the middle of that back three. I don't think he's going to get moved. The pieces we put around him, Rose looked like he'd come in and absolutely nailed down the distributing role from the right-hand side. He's got a passing ability that I've not seen since Tom Edwards on a good day, but Tom Edwards can't run. So Rose can move. And Cisse, it's been a massive frustration. I keep talking about frustrations. We, or should I say, Carl played Callum Cisse, and Wheelstone fans were, why is he doing this? As a second striker of about 6 or 7 games in a row, mindless. Apart from the fact the guy can press and run, it made no sense. Then he put Woodburn up there, I think, against Bristol. Night and day difference. You see Callum where he should be, box to box. Actually, I would say almost in an attacking midfield pressing position from what I saw against Bristol. And then Woodburn is more of a support striker, where a player as willowy as him can get away with just being purely technical. So they are good signings, but both of them have had iffy periods, but they've emerged out of those and are looking strong.
Yeah, I also really like the Daniel Udo signing, and I think the way he started definitely is definitely exciting because I think he's maybe flown under the radar because for some of his League One career he was playing for Shrewsbury after stepping up from non-league with Telford, and maybe Shrewsbury under Steve Cottrell they weren't necessarily a team that was going to create tons of chances, and then in his time at Wycombe Wanderers he's possibly been behind Richard Kone and difficult to start then. So he's played League One football without necessarily being in circumstances that were conducive to him scoring lots of goals. But now, A, he's dropped down to League Two, which is obviously a bit of an easier level, and B, he's the main man at Salford City in a way that he wasn't at Wycombe, and he's playing in a team that's going to get the best out of him. So I think with all those factors in mind, I think Daniel Ludo's been really well placed to show what he can do.
Two quick things on him. The third, if am I allowed to mention bets? I won't if I'm not allowed to. I saw he was I think it was each way top four goal scorers in our division. I think I got 26-1. Brilliant odds, I thought, because I think to get in the top four, not the top one, that was 40-1. That was a great deal. So I went for it. I think he's a striker that Cal's always wanted. When I talked to MK Dons fans and I talked to Oxford fans, I said, what kind of striker does Cal want if it's not a Matt Smith? They said, well, it's not a Matt Smith. It's actually a getting behind a striker who can stretch the defence. Yeah.
Yeah. So just on that, when Carl Robinson was at MK Dons, he had a striker called Benica Fobe, who was a real... Yeah, exactly. So he was very quick and strong and could, get him behind and stretch lines. And it's great that, I think you're spot on with that sort of...
he's never had pace. I mean, I don't mean Udo. I mean, Carl has never had a striker until Udo with pace. Hendry, Smith, there isn't anything like that. So, and the other thing is, I think Udo can create for himself, as he's proven already. He can create for others and he can create for himself. The actual final thing is, and there's so many times now I'm seeing movements, set moves almost in open play, where it's obvious that he's a focal point of he's supposed to be on the end of that, and he's getting very close. He scored a few. I think he's got 2 goals and 4 assists in about 4 games. Not bad at all. Surprised he didn't take the penalty, but we seem to be we're not crossing the ball. If you start looking at our stats, forget the ones where it's a chip into the box and that's not a cross. There's no need for us to cross with players like him in the box because he's not a header he's not a target man. So we're actually reinventing our whole game plan to cater for him, and that's why I think he has a massive chance of being in the top 4 goal scorers, because we want him to be 20 plus. I think that's what we banked on.
Are we in danger of trusting Salford now?
I'm happy.
Why?
I'm happy now. Yeah, I'm happy. I'm much happier. Although I will call out one player who's really not impressed me. Braden Cooper has stunk the place. He's terrible against Shrewsbury. Got ripped to shreds. He's a player we seem to have brought in as a left-sided, a Luke Garbutt cover position. He played again on the left against Wigan. Never touched a ball with his left foot once. I don't know if he can. I don't know if he has a left foot. I'm unsure about him. He doesn't look the strongest physically. He doesn't look that quick over a short yardage. I don't see why we brought him in, apart from the fact that we don't want a defensive injury crisis before January. But maybe we've overpaid for that. I don't know.
Right, okay. But in terms of the team collectively, you're really happy with what you've seen?
Love it, yeah.
Okay.
And you know me, Gab, you know I don't say this. Tell him
I know. Are you feeling all right, Danny?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm good.
So wow, okay. So we're excited about what Salford can do. Are we talking top 7? Are we talking top 3 challenge? What's possible for Salford City?
I honestly think if Carl at some point says, I'll tell you what, just for a game or 2, I'm going to start playing out from the back. Use Matt Young as a 4th centre back, which I've seen him do for us. He did it especially away against Accrington last year, where he draws the press and we play around it and we just knock him for 6 because Matt has feet. really does. For a goalkeeper, he's absolutely phenomenal with his feet. But all we're doing at the moment is hitting 70-yard balls. If we start playing it from the back more and start drawing teams onto us, and then maybe mixing in the direct stuff more. I think if that was it, if our default was play it from the back, and then Liverpool do this kind of thing at times. You're making the other team react to you. I think if he was, my wife's going to tell me I'm talking too loud. I'm getting too passionate, but excuse me. I do actually think that Carl, you can't start buying strikers for 325 grand and bringing players in like we've done, Rose, Turton, Cooper, etc. Grant. I mean, Grant must be on at least 5 grand or more. He must be way at the top of the pay scale we had. Use him. You can't just play the ball over midfield. There's no point to having him, really. So I do think he's going to return to the type of team he wants to use. I think he's now got it, but I think it sounds bad to say it, has he got the courage to give it a shot? Because every match matters now, every result matters, and I feel it at every game. Our owners are holding things more to account than ever. So I think there's a big scrutiny on him.
Yeah, but certainly encouraging times for Salford City, and
Sure.
great to see things looking up. Danny, thanks so much for joining us.
Sorry I was late.
You don't have to talk anymore, so I won't get into trouble with the missus. Thanks for everyone for watching. This has been the EFL Debate League 2 podcast. You can get subscribed to us here at EFL Debate on YouTube and on Spotify if you want more content, and we'll see you again next week.